Adoba, Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Two wrongs make neither side right. Both sides are trying to convince you they are fighting the good fight, and they are not. Just moments ago, former President Joe Biden delivered his first speech in public since leaving the White House. My reaction? Why? What did this accomplish? He sounded fine. I'm sure the fringe at MAGA land is going to say it was AI or that, look, he's obviously brain dead. I don't buy it, but here's his message.
Fewer than 100 days, this new administration has made done so much damage and so much destruction. They've taken a hatchet to the Social Security Administration. Why are these guys taking aim at Social Security now? Well, they're following that old line from tech startups. The quote is, move fast, break things. My friend Governor O'Malley knows what they're really up to. He says, and I love his quote, they want to wreck it so they can rob it.
Look, for me, former President Biden isn't the issue. It is the lack of the Democrats having anyone else that is the issue, as well as the proposition he's trying to sell you that Trump wants to cut Social Security benefits. Says who? Cutting benefits would be politically perilous, and Trump knows it. Democrats, there are plenty of real problems with Trump's actions so far. Why make one up that hasn't happened? Has Trump messed with the program wrongly? Yes. The BS about millions of people over the age of 100 getting benefits. It's BS. Saying seniors and disabled people could no longer verify their identity over the phone was dumb. And when they were flooded with hate and realized that 40% of claims happen over the phone, they reversed course. Okay, that's Trump. All right, everything's a nail and he's a hammer. Doesn't always work out. Declaring migrants who are legally granted asylum as dead because they supposedly committed crimes or are on terror watch lists. You just don't want them to get the benefits. I get it, but it's illegal. They also declared some kids as dead in that rush to punish migrants and made them lose needed benefits. Haste makes waste. And no, this is not a one-off, it's a pattern, okay? Musk called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. It isn't. It's not a Ponzi scheme by definition, and it is a fundamental aspect of the safety net that makes America great. And then he stumbled on a list of migrants who were assigned Social Security numbers because they were authorized to work in the U.S., and he claimed they were receiving max pay and benefits despite no setting like that ever existing at the program. Look, I know MAGA folk keep telling you otherwise. Illegal immigrants cannot receive Social Security benefits, okay? Illegal immigrants can't. In fact, they contribute over $20 billion a year to Social Security and get no benefits. I don't have a problem with that either, but that's the fact. The truth, some immigrants, not illegal immigrants, some immigrants who are here legally and authorized to work here legally can eventually qualify to receive Social Security benefits, but the process can take up to a decade of working in the U.S. to receive benefits. It's an eventual thing, okay? They're getting it wrong. They're doing it on purpose. The point is, the truth is enough. You want to go after the administration for how they're painting Social Security in a false light? Fine. But we don't know of any plan to cut benefits. So don't trot out the ultimate senior citizen to say otherwise. Why? Because this makes Democrats no better than what they accuse MAGA of. And you're wasting the chance to have better ideas for the program. Like what? Raise the cap on wages that get taxed for Social Security, like you did for Medicare. You do that, there's no more issue for a generation. Democrats, be in the business of better. Not just who and what is worse. Now to the other truth abuse. Here's the reality. President Trump was right to criticize what was happening during the Biden administration on the border. He was right to want to stop the flow of illegal entrants. He was right to largely stop it. Good for him. He is right to want to remove dangerous people from America. In fact, that is an unqualified good, period. But. How you do things in America matters. In fact, I would argue to you, it is all that matters. And you are being sold BS about this Garcia guy, okay? For me, he's not the issue. Due process is. John Adams. America should be a government of laws, not of men. Why? Because the rules have to matter most here, not personal preferences, not politics, not partisan allegiances. Justice Brandeis taught us the two most important words in the law are due process. It's what distinguishes America and makes her great. Just because you like the end result does not mean you can get to it by any means necessary. Again, not my idea. Benjamin Franklin. It is better to let 100 guilty men get away than let one man suffer. Why? Because that is the line, okay? That is the line between law and order and democracy to something decidedly less. My concern is that Trump is driving at something decidedly less. Case in point, Kilmer Garcia. If you're on Twitter or Fox or any of the MAGA media, you would think this Garcia guy is a known terrorist and gangbanger who was caught and returned to where he belongs, and the Democrats want him back. Great for Twitter, but totally twisted. Here are the facts. Garcia entered the U.S. from El Salvador as a teen in 2011 illegally. He was here for years, living illegally, working illegally for years. No known criminal record, okay? Is that unusual for a gangbanger? Yeah, kind of, but it could go either way. 2019, he's arrested at a Home Depot parking lot, looking for work. Allegedly, an informant told ICE that Garcia was a member of MS-13, the gang. The right points to a judge's order in a 2019 bond hearing after he was detained, saying it proves he's a gangbanger. Says it right in there. Look, I can highlight it. There was no hearing on the allegation. The judge in the bond hearing just took the government's word for it. When the government had to prove it, what happened? The government lost the case and didn't appeal. Did you know that? Garcia applied for asylum, didn't get it. But the judge did grant him a legal status called withholding of removal. What does that mean? It was from 1980. It was an extension of the Immigration Naturalization Act to get in sync with international law. Reagan did it. The judge, this is the meaning of the order. He did not find the government's evidence that Garcia was a gangbanger compelling. They found, the judge, that Garcia had a reasonable fear that gangs would harm him if he was returned, and decided that he was not a danger to the public, so he was allowed to stay and work. I am not referring to Garcia as the Maryland man, okay? He is from El Salvador. He came here illegally, period. You don't have to like how he came here. You don't have to like him. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I have no idea. Maybe a bad guy. I don't know. But he is here legally, okay? Now, is it a weird legal kind of limbo? Yeah, but he's here legally. The Trump team knew about this order and deported him anyway. That is the truth. They admitted it. They call it a mistake. Now they don't want to correct it. If they think that Garcia is a gangbanger, they should prove it in court and kick him out. They did not do that, and that is un-American. It's not me saying it. It's the Supreme Court saying it, the court that Trump picked the majority of, 9-0. Do you know how rare that is with this court? Now, why his guys are saying they won, I don't know. My best guess is Stephen Miller thinks you're an idiot, that he thinks you guys are a bunch of lemmings and you'll believe whatever they say. The fact is, his own people admit they deported the guy wrongly. Now, look, I get the optics. Who wants to argue in favor of bringing the gangbanger back? Okay? Hey, but you know what? That's the law. And either you respect it or you are lawless. I get that politically you got the high ground. I'm sure I'm getting my butt kicked on MAGA media right now. I'm sure. That's easy. You want it easy, you don't get a democracy. Okay? You want it easy, you don't have law and order. You got to choose your hard in America. It's hard to respect due process, but it gets really hard if you don't. And if you don't respect the law, you deserve no respect. And you can't wonder why headlines like these start to pop up. Okay? Now, do I believe that U.S. citizens are going to get shipped off to some other country to a prison if Trump doesn't like them? No. But when he ignores due process and flouts it in everybody's face, what do you expect people to think? What do you think? You're ignoring the Supreme Court telling you a guy is legally here. Well, then why is it a stretch to think that you would send other people away? We only know what he shows, and what he's showing is not good on this. You want to pay another country millions of dollars a year to hold whom you deport? Fine. It's about 20 grand a deportee. That's a political choice. Respecting the law should not be a choice. So let's discuss what's going on here, this state of play. All right? I showed you former President Biden coming out saying they're coming for your Social Security. Was that a good move for the Democrats? Joining me now, a man who's getting a lot of shine, getting a lot of hype, said the other day he feels he may have no choice but to seriously consider a run for president of these United States. Has he got an American flag on tonight? It's always a good tell. No, not tonight. No. Okay. Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, and of course, the eponymous show, the Stephen A. Smith Show, very good on digital media. It's good to see you, my brother. What did you think of President Biden making his witness and the message that they are coming for your Social Security?
Waste of time. Fell on deaf ears. I watched about 5 minutes of it. I didn't really have much interest in it because he's no longer the president. When he was the president, there were some things that he did, like opening the borders, which were horrendous and obviously debilitating to this nation. And because of it, that accentuated the point that he needed to go. And once he saw that, the man that once promised to be a transitional president decided that he wanted to stay and ultimately had to be forced out. And so when those kind of things happen, clearly a lot of what you have to say is falling on deaf ears, particularly when all you're doing is regurgitating things that you said in the past, not just when you were president, but when you were a candidate for the presidency before you ultimately won the election in 2020. It's not to say that he's completely right or wrong. Is to simply say, unfortunately, because of the things that have transpired over the last several years, a lot of people weren't too interested in hearing from him. Think about it. Not even the Democrats themselves appeared happy that he was coming out and giving some kind of speech, rather. There were a plethora of them asking the question, why, for what possible purpose did it serve? And certainly they're asking themselves now after seeing him speak.
What do you think about the premise that Social Security is vulnerable here? President Trump says when asked, no, I'm not going to change the benefit structure there. They are doing other things that you could argue are messing with the efficiencies at Social Security, even though they say they're doing it to make it more efficient. What's your take?
It's all relevant, and here's the reason why it's relevant. Just because it's relevant, I don't want that to be interpreted as me saying he's right when he says that, because there's no evidence right now that that's what President Trump is doing. But the fact is that Trump operates under his own rules. He operates under fear. He kind of invokes it. He kind of pushes for it. He wants you to guess at what he's doing. He wants you to fear what he may do. And so when folks speculate about the kind of problems that he'll ultimately do to America, whether it's Social Security or anything else, you're going to have an abundance of Americans, millions of Americans, particularly and specifically on the left, who are going to believe the word possible applies here. And anytime you're able to apply the word possible to something involving Donald Trump, there are going to be those who support him, and there are going to be those who are vehemently against him, which means polarization continues to grow and fester. And when that happens, that's what leads to the kind of problems that you're talking about. That's what leads to people trolling you on social media, attacking me, going after everybody that they can find that doesn't agree with every single syllable they utter or every little feeling that they have. This is the kind of climate that we're living in, and we're desperate to have people from both the left and the right pulled to the center, because we call it the center. We call it centrist, when in fact it's simply asking folks to engage in a level of common sense and decorum, because that seems to be absent from our politics these days, along with the constituency that follows whatever particular politics you like.
Left and right must be reasonable. It is not easy to argue in favor of a guy who may be an MS-13 gang member, but what does it mean when the Supreme Court says 9-0, that no, you got to respect that order from that immigration judge. That guy's here legally. You can't deport him. And Trump goes,
That's a big problem. And here's the reason why. because of the 6-3 majority that you highlighted. He invoked, obviously, Kavanaugh and Barrett, and Gorsuch. I mean, you look at these justices in the Supreme Court. These are people that Trump put there. And you've got a 6-3 majority, a conservative majority in the United States Supreme Court that unanimously votes 9-0 that this individual is here in this country legally, and he's not somebody that should be deported, and you ignored it anyway. And then when he's gone, you say that you don't have the ability to get him back. So let me get this straight. You can stop the war between Ukraine and Russia. You can fix the problem between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip and beyond. You can fix these plethora of problems in a snap, according to him during the campaign and the things that he said on numerous occasions. But you mistakenly, openly acknowledged it was a mistake, that you sent this individual to El Salvador, and not only are you unable to get him back, but the leader of El Salvador is sitting right next to you, to your right, and telling the folks to their face that no, you can't get him back, and there's absolutely positively nothing that you can do. I find that very, very difficult to believe. I think it is something that the president could do if he truly, truly cared to do so. And he's just snubbing his nose at the United States Supreme Court. And if that's something that he's willing to do now, God help us all what he may be willing to do in the future if he gets away with it.
The counter is no. He's only doing this, Stephen A., because this guy's a bum who shouldn't be in this country anyway. He wouldn't violate due process. He wouldn't ignore the court if it mattered. What's the problem with that kind of rationale?
The problem with that kind of rationale is that's an excuse that you can easily surmise and come up with for any citizen that's out there. I mean, I understand that this individual was here legally after arriving illegally, but the bottom line is the Supreme Court favored him staying here, and he's still gone, and you're saying that you can't get him back. If that's something that you can do, you can take an act, and the ramifications and repercussions are not something that you have to feel, then again, now all of a sudden, things like words like autocracy and dictatorships all of a sudden come to the forefront, because people are going to look at that and saying the rule of law, which we live on, which we pride ourselves in living on, is something that's not applicable to you. And if that happens, we've got ourselves a big, big time problem. And it's not just with him. It's with the GOP in the House and the Senate. It's with officials who work in the cabinet under him. It's American citizens, a constituency. It's just like when they were talking about the 22nd Amendment and joking about circumventing that. Do we anticipate that's going to happen? Of course we don't. But the nerve, the gall for them to even open their mouth and intimate it, it's wrong, because it's showing that you're willing to play around with the rule of law and even the Constitution of the United States at your discretion. And when something like that happens and they're not universally checked, you know we've got ourselves a problem, because too many people are thinking about themselves and their own hide instead of thinking about what's in the best interest of the country. That's a problem.
Stephen A. Smith, what is the chance that this weekend, as we celebrate the highest of Christian holidays, rebirth and renewal, there will be video of Stephen A. Smith going and attending Mass, shaking people's hands, holding a baby, putting it back in the mother's arms, walking around and saying, I love America, I love Jesus?
Zero. Because I've got NBA duties for ESPN.
0%.
I have NBA duties for ESPN, my day job, which I happen to love very, very much, by the way. The NBA playoffs are about to begin. I have obligations, but I am always happy when America is happy. That much I will tell you. Anytime I can put a smile on people's face, it's something I'm happy to do.
Now, have you noticed that you've been talking like this more often? You see this gesture that I'm doing? It is not what a sports commentator does. Sports commentators don't do this. I'm just saying, Stephen A., I'm watching you. I'm watching you, Stephen A. Smith.
Look, I have fun with it, but it's gotten serious only from the standpoint that there are a lot of people in my face saying, at least show the respect to people who support you and believe in you and believe that you're so good for this country to at least leave the door open. I've just signed a new contract that I'm very, very happy with. I have a day job that I'm very, very happy with. I've got a production company. I've got a lot of things that I'm doing. I show up on your show practically every week. I love my life and what I'm doing. There's no reason for me to be be an elected official. But it's still bad. It's very, very bad. And something has to be done. And you're just praying that the Democratic Party will step up and find a viable candidate to compete with the right. Because the reality is, even though you and I both know individuals on the left who are incredibly gifted and could do a lot of good things for this country, the fact of the matter is, are they resonating nationally? The answer at this particular juncture is no. And because it's a no, you're desperate for somebody to step up and take the bull by the horn. So God forbid somebody like me doesn't have to.
Stephen A. Smith, always a pleasure. Rebirth and renewal, my brother. A happy Easter to you and the family. I'll talk to you before that. Take care. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up, federal judge said to the Trump administration, I told you that you had to do this. You fought me. You went to the Supreme Court. You lost. Now you're telling me you may appeal. There's nothing to appeal. What do you do when someone is avoiding the law? You go deeper on why it is the law. One of the lawmakers leading the charge to have Garcia returned is Maryland member of Congress Jamie Raskin. Is this the right thing to do, but the wrong look politically? And what did he think of former President Biden's speech? Next. Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the Go. I'm Chris Cuomo. This is America's fastest growing cable news network, delivering fact-based, unbiased news from all sides.
Foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result. There is never going to be a world in which this is an individual who's going to live a peaceful life in Maryland.
Saying something like you believe it doesn't make it right. She cannot prove what she just said to you. Should she have to? That's the question, okay? This guy Garcia, look, I'm not here to plead his case as a human being. I don't know if he's a gangbanger or not. I know that an immigration judge did not believe the government's case that he was, and they didn't appeal, and they admit they made a mistake when they deported him. Now they just don't want to correct it. So that's where the Supreme Court is. What's the right thing to do here, but what is the politically right thing to do? And how do you marry those two? Let me bring in Maryland member of Congress, Democrat Jamie Raskin, legal scholar by any estimate. Professor Dershowitz alone says Raskin is the guy to talk to about these things. It's good to see you, Congressman. So legally, I get what the situation is. The Supreme Court's 9-0 on it. And yet, the optics seem that the Democrats are in a losing position here. Why?
I'm not sure if that's true. I think that people believe in due process. People understand that if they can sweep up every non-citizen in the country off of the streets and send them to, a torturer's prison in El Salvador, why can't they do that to U.S. citizens? I mean, if they swept up a citizen in your family and they said, wait, I'm a citizen, they'd say, well, I'm sorry, we're taking you. We're not giving people due process. So you could say you're innocent. You could say you're not a gangbanger. You could say you're not a non-citizen. But if the government has the authority to remove people from the country without due process, then we're all deeply in the soup. So I think Americans get that. And if we don't, then it is time for us to be doing education around those two most beautiful words in the English language, due process, because it protects everybody.
Yeah, but here's the defense. Now, I don't know, I can't defend what Levitt is saying. I don't know where she got those facts from, that he was engaged in human trafficking and this and that. I don't know where she's getting that from. It's not part of the case file. It's not part of the record. But they say what they want to say. Your problem is, this is a bad guy. This is a gangbanger. He wasn't supposed to be here in the first place. This is what's wrong with you Democrats. You're too soft. You want to let in all the wrong people, and you don't want to help the right people.
I mean, here's all we know, again, because there was no trial. He has no criminal record. There are no criminal charges against him. He went to try to get asylum. He was denied asylum because it was too late. But the court agreed that he had a well-founded fear of persecution if he was returned to El Salvador because he was fleeing gang violence. That's what he was afraid of. But the court determined that he was no threat to anyone in America and said that they entered him into the withhold deportation status where he has been and has continued to have no criminal record. So look, if they believe that he is the worst guy in the world, he's Jeffrey Epstein, or he organized the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, and was responsible for violent assaults against 140 police officers, bring him to court and show the evidence against him. I mean, this thing about human trafficking, that's the first I even heard of it.
Right.
Him being a terrorist, that's the first I even heard of it. I mean, they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall at this point.
So I understand where you're arguing on the facts with this. That's why I don't understand the motivation behind former President Biden coming out and saying Trump's coming for your Social Security. When they ask him about the benefit structure for any of the entitlements, he says, I'm not going to touch it. And we don't know about anything in the budget negotiation where they want to change the benefit structure. Why scare people with he's coming for your Social Security?
Well, you know, I can't say for sure about Donald Trump, but I'll tell you with 100% certainty, Elon Musk is coming for your Social Security. The guy called it the greatest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world. He clearly wants to take down Social Security. They've already sacked 7,000 workers at Social Security. It's impossible to get through on the phones. They tell you, well, just go to the offices, but they're trying to close dozens of Social Security offices around the country. So that's not made up. That's just reality. They're proud of that. So Donald Trump seems to have savvier political instincts about Social Security than Elon Musk in the right wing, which has been trying to privatize it for decades. But I'm telling you right now, and I'm willing to stand on this, your Social Security is not safe with these people in charge of the government.
Why not, instead of playing to those fears, be in the business of better ideas of how to extend the longevity and health of Social Security? That's where Trump is weak on it, right? He's going for efficiencies with his genius chooch buddy Musk, who's calling it a Ponzi scheme. I agree. That was clumsy and foolish and bad for the administration. But I think you've seen the most of Musk that you're going to. Why aren't Democrats in the business of better? Here's what you do. Here's how you make it solvent. Here's how you deal with the needs of the program going forward.
Well, you got to meet my friend John Larson from Connecticut. It's all he talks about, and we're all signed on to his legislation. We need to lift the cap on the FICA tax, because right now, when you pay that FICA tax as part of your salary, that's a regressive tax. They cut it off at, I think it's 167,000.
174, something
174,000 now. Okay, but that means that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they stop paying when, you know, a doctor stops paying instead of increasing it. We can restore the solvency alone by lifting that cap without even getting into making people retire later, which is sometimes what the Republicans talk about. So let's do it.
Will you give high earners, if you, let's say you go to $400,000 of income, would you give people who make that kind of money some kind of tax offset if they don't need the Social Security?
You mean if they don't take the Social
Yes.
Security, you mean? I had not heard that proposal, but look, I'm up for anything. The Democrats are up for exploring any possibility for stabilizing Social Security for the future. And obviously we need to do that because people are living longer than we were before, and that's a good thing. But Social Security is the greatest anti-poverty program ever created in American history.
Yeah.
It has kept millions and millions of older people out of poverty and kept millions of disabled people out of poverty. And its administrative costs are much less than 1%. It's a very efficient and successful program. We shouldn't be tearing it down and making it impossible for people to get through to the offices. We should be building up and doing what you're suggesting, Chris, which is let's talk about guaranteeing insolvency for the future.
Congressman Raskin, it is of tremendous benefit to the audience to hear your arguments and to have you on the show. Thank you for making time and taking advantage of the opportunity. I wish you well.
Delighted to be with you again.
Have a safe Passover, Congressman. I'll talk to you soon. All right, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Coming up. So the administration says what you just heard Levitt say. He's a human trafficker, he's this, he's that. I want to talk to the guy's lawyer. And I want to hear, first of all, has he talked to him? Does he know where his guy is, his client? Do they have any clue where the guy is? And I want to kind of go a little bit deeper here about what do we know, what do we not know? The lawyer should know. Next.
This is Cuomo on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app. Or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
You can hear me? Stay strong. God hasn't forgotten about you. Our children are asking, when would you come home? And I pray for the day I tell them the time and date that you'll return.
So, Garcia, mistakenly deported, sent to an El Salvador prison. We're paying El Salvador like 20-something grand per deportee per year to hold the people that we deport. The Trump administration believes he is a human trafficking MS-13 gang member who should not be in this country. The Supreme Court says the problem is he's here legally. You got to follow it. Trump hasn't. Now, I want to talk to a member of the legal team, Benjamin Osorio, who is representing the rights of Mr. Garcia. Counsel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
One, do you know where he is? Have you spoken to him?
So we have not spoken with him, but we've been notified through the court filings by the government that he's still being held at CCOT, the sort of notorious Salvadorian prison that's been in the news recently.
So what's your best sense of when you're able to get in contact with him and do a wellness check?
We tried to have a wellness check done last week by a human rights group, sort of international aid agency, and they were not. We had anticipated they were going to be allowed to see him last Wednesday, Thursday. That did not happen. So we're still trying to facilitate that. My understanding is that there is a congressional delegation looking at going down. And so hopefully we've been in contact with several congressmen and senators that they might be able to see him or do a wellness check as well.
You have to do the job, zealous representation of his rights. The problem here is this is the guy that American people don't want in the country. They believe this is a gangbanger. We just heard the White House press secretary say he's a human trafficker. He's not supposed to be here. He doesn't deserve the benefit of the law. This is one of those ones where you should bend it a little bit to get him out. What do you say?
I would say my understanding is that we were going after hardened criminals. So just by you saying somebody's a hardened criminal doesn't necessarily make them so. This is an individual who's married to a U.S. citizen, who has 3 U.S. citizen kids, who has no criminal record, who's a union member, and who pays taxes. I thought those were the kind of people that we said that we weren't going after and we were targeting deportees.
Do you believe, or do you have reason to believe, that he is gang affiliated? That's why he was afraid of gangs back in El Salvador, and that he does have an affiliation?
We've seen no evidence to date. I did not represent him, or I should say our team did not represent him in the original proceedings in 2019. I have seen those documents. There's nothing in there that makes me believe that he is an MS-13 gang member. An IJ looked at this, an immigration judge looked at this in 2019, found nothing that believed he was a gang member, because that would have barred him from that form of relief if he was a member of a gang. So I've seen nothing. An immigration judge looked at it, seen nothing. The district court has looked at it and seen nothing. The Fourth Circuit has criticized the government because they put up nothing. So this is, to me, this is one of those examples where if the law's on your side, bang the law. If the facts are on your side, bang the law. And if you've got neither, and that's what they're doing, you bang loudly on the table. And so there's a lot of banging. I haven't seen a lot of proof in court. And it's very easy to say this stuff when you're not under oath at a press conference, but do it in court. Do it when you have a duty of candor to the court. Do it when you're at a risk of perjury. That's when I'll believe it.
Fair point. Do you think you get him back?
I think we get him back at some point. I think it's in the government's interest to avoid a constitutional crisis. I think it's in El Salvador's interest to avoid this. I think they don't like the publicity on this right now. I think that's why it's hot. I think that's why they're trying to bury it. I think that's why you saw in district court today, they're trying to stall, you know, talking about appealing the judge's order. And she's like, there's nothing to appeal. But I do think you will see them make that move. But I am hopeful that the government will comply with the Supreme Court's order. That's why I'm optimistic that we get him back, because if they've not complied with the Supreme Court's order to facilitate his return, where have we landed?
Counsel, you got an open line here to tell me what happens and what is right and what is not right. You will get a platform here to make the case, and that case will be tested. Benjamin Osorio, Good luck going forward.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Be well. That's a little spooky. You got to be honest. El Salvador prison, not a good place to be, especially if legally you're not supposed to be there. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I want to bring Geraldo in, okay? I want to talk to him about what's happening in the universities. He's a spoiler alert, right? I think it's crazy that the Ivy Leagues, and yes, we have a kid who's about to graduate from one, very proud of her achievement. Why do they get so much government money? Why do they charge so much? Is the president wrong that they shouldn't get the money and be tax exempt if they are not going to be fair and candid about what they are about? And I want to hear Geraldo about his beef about Bill Maher meeting the president. I want to hear his take on it because I respect him so much. Oh, he's waving me off. All right, maybe we won't. Next.
Tomorrow, only on NewsNation. Cuomo.
Our seats have been adjusted so that I strangely look taller than he does.
O'Reilly.
The true things can be true at the same time.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
Number one, you're a cheap frump.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
And number two, I'm much better dressed than him. So that's
You just have a tie on.
True.
Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central.
You have a tie on that goes with nothing else.
Only on NewsNation.
University says, Trump, you don't get to tell us what to do. Could cost them billions. The Ivy League school says it won't give in to what the administration is demanding, which is to eliminate DEI programs, ban masks at campus protests, not like COVID masks, but like I can't see your face masks, and enact merit-based hiring and admissions reforms, which the Trump administration says is, quote, more committed to activism than scholarship. Trump immediately took to Truth Social because he loves this fight and threatened further. Perhaps Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status. Blah, 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 blah. Let's bring in Geraldo Rivera. What is your message for Harvard, my handsome friend?
Remember Voltaire, I do not agree with a word of what you say, but I will fight to the death your right to say it. If you can't have free speech on a university campus, if a university can't be in charge of what is, what its rules are, then what is a university? Why is a university special? And why have I have a Jewish, beautiful daughter at a major university who was very shocked and assailed when this scandal first broke last semester, and there were anti-Semitic protests on her campus and many, many others. It is horrible. They single out these kids. They have to be protected. You have to be vigilant against anti-Semitism, but you cannot allow your fear of what could be said to change the rules, to say that no, Harvard doesn't get to say what happens within the gates of Harvard. Donald Trump does, on who gets hired, who gets to teach, who gets admitted to the school, what they get to learn. That has to be Harvard's decision, not Donald Trump's. And when he threatens the federal stipends for research, cancer research, and so forth, I mean, shame on him, Chris.
But why are they tax exempt? You know, when you look at how much they cost and how much more they are than the rate of inflation and how their endowment has gone up just as much as their cost structure has, why are they tax exempt in the first place?
Well, maybe that's a question for Doge or, Musk and smarter minds than mine. I don't know, but you could make an argument that why have any tax-exempt organizations? Why have any not-for-profits
I'm good with charities.
I can deduct?
I'm good with charities. I'm good with NGOs.
But how do you know what's a charity and what's a propaganda?
Well, Harvard's not a charity.
I don't know.
Harvard's not a charity.
Harvard is not a But most of what Harvard gets, interesting that you bring that up, the $2 billion plus, is for research. And Harvard has so many patents. They've done so much great cancer research and so forth. You've got to encourage the intellectual pursuit of knowledge. There have to be places where there are nothing but people looking for the next big thing. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people, getting rich on something they invent, whether it's Facebook. Didn't that come from the Harvard campus? Mm-hmm. Just kidding around, and then all of a sudden it became a monster company. That's good. Those things are good. That's free enterprise. And I think that You know, who gets into a university has to be the university's decision, not Donald Trump's. Who gets to teach them has to be the university's decision, not Stephen Miller's decision. And you know what they get to learn. I think that you've got to stay away from the messing with the First Amendment. That's more important than almost anything.
Yeah, no, look, I'm fine with that. I just think they're too expensive. And I think that if you're going to if it's for cancer research, that's one thing. I think a lot of it's not just for cancer research. I just think there should be some strings, because I think it was really disgusting what they allowed on their campuses in the interest of freedom. Why did you wave me off when I was talking about the Bill Maher thing? You don't want to talk about it, or do I have you wrong?
Well, I don't mind. It's just that there's so many more important things. The main thing with Bill Maher, if you want me to just give you my quick take.
Of course. I love you.
Bill Maher was the principal, I love you too. Bill Maher was the principal proponent of the Russia hoax. From 2016 to 2019, he was all about Donald Trump is in league with the Russians. He's a Russian asset. They've totally fixing the election, Russia collusion, on and on and on. He really went after him day after day. And I went on a show. I bet him that he was wrong. Put the bet aside. He lost the bet because Russia collusion was not proven to any extent at all. But the thing is, he says to me on the air, why do you like Trump? Isn't it because he was nice to you? Well, he was nice to you at Thanksgiving. Why is all of a sudden Bill Maher, then he sits down and he does a 13-minute wrap of why he went to the White House, and Trump was nice and gracious and worldly and accommodating and a nice host. In other words, exactly for what I did or my relationship with Trump, Bill Maher now is saying, let's all be friends. We need room for intellectual discourse. Everybody, big tent and all the rest of it. It's just a bunch of BS. I think that these guys, a lot of these satirists, they get a lot of license, which they should, because humor is the universal language that we all speak. But sometimes they get too full of themselves. And
I get it. I get it. I just think he's come around to where you were on it, which is it's better to get along and to treat people as human beings, even if you disagree with everything that they say they do and do. But I wanted your take on it. Thank you for giving it to me, and I'm glad to see you.
Oh, look, good to see you too, brother. Always.
Geraldo's laugh. You laugh at me most of the time. I'll call you right after the show. We'll be right back. I make Geraldo laugh.
Thanks for listening to News Nation on the Go. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. We're here for you 24/7 on the News Nation app or on your Alexa. Just say, play News Nation.
Rhetorical tip for you, okay? Maybe the person you're dealing with online, or if you're lucky in life, is just wrong. We have to get back to it being okay to just be wrong. Doesn't mean that they're a liar. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that they're not a patriot. It doesn't mean that they are someone you must be against. You can just be wrong. Think about it, because it is widely ignored in